Okay guys, welcome to Links London. Now this might look like a garage in South London, but this is the newly refurbished global headquarters of Links London. And tonight I thought I'd share with you a little behind the scenes of setting up Links London and also setting up a jewellery business here in the UK. So I have a delivery, a special delivery, and I'm guessing from at first I thought this was a customer return. They often sound like that. But looking at the return address, this is from the Goldsmiths Company assay office. So I'm guessing this is our new Links London hallmarking punches, our sponsors marks. I thought I'd share our first look at these and we'll test them out on some silver. So first of all, the backstory to these, for those of you that are new here, I set up Links London. Initially, there was a jewellery brand and business here in the UK called Links of London. They're founded in 1990, sold to foreign investors in 2006. By 2019, they'd racked up over £100 million worth of debt, were put into administration and liquidated. However, they made some cool stuff and we've acquired quite a lot of it and bits and pieces from the liquidated stock as well. But a lot of the vintage and retro pieces, I thought it'd be cool to repair, restore and resell them. So to do that as Links London, first of all, there was a few legal hurdles we had to jump over and a few legal hoops we had to jump through. The first thing we took care of was the intellectual property and trademarks, so we could just sell the repaired, restored, vintage and retro Links of London stuff. But then next, once that was taken care of, and we're doing that, I thought it'd be cool to start making pieces as Links London. And for that, here in the UK, all businesses have to comply with the basic trading standards laws. However, for jewellers, most jewellers selling precious metal jewellery, there is additional legislation, laws, rules we have to follow in the form of the Hallmarking Act. And this is a dealer's notice here, which jewellers, that's the one jewellers have to display in bricks and mortar stores, and that's the one we're going to have to display on websites. And this is a basic breakdown of it, very basic. It's a multi-page piece of law which you can download and read, but basically items of silver above 7.78 grams jewelry, this is, need to be independently tested by an assay office and hallmarked. And palladium, any item weighing over a gram, gold, any item weighing over a gram, and platinum, any item weighing over 0.5 grams. So a lot of silver, 7.78 grams of silver is quite a fair piece of jewellery. So a lot of silver doesn't legally require hallmarking, it's exempt, so it's just marked with a finesse mark quite often, 925 you'll see. However, a lot of pieces we and other jewellers will have voluntarily hallmarked. So although it's not compulsory, you can have it done voluntarily. So in order to get pieces hallmarked, to comply with the Hallmarking Act, you have to register your business or your brand, or you can register personally with one of 4 assay offices. The oldest one is here in London and it's about 700 years old. Long history. There's one in Scotland, in Edinburgh, one in Birmingham and one in Sheffield. And historically there have been others, there have been more. There's also one in Dublin, but I don't know how that works. So let's just stick to the 4: London, Edinburgh, Birmingham and Sheffield for now. So all of the vintage and retro Links of London pieces we're selling have already been hallmarked, or certainly comply with the Hallmarking Act if they're not. And for some reason, well, I'll tell you the reason I would guess. Links of London was registered with the Edinburgh Assay Office in Scotland. They couldn't have picked an assay office further away from London. I, however, thought it would be a good idea to register Lynx London in London. However, before I filmed this, I looked at the possible reason why. Now I'm questioning that decision myself. Although all four assay offices provide us jewellers with the same, effectively the same service, and that is compliance with the Hallmarking Act, having pieces that are over the compulsory hallmarking weights independently tested and then hallmarked to prove that they've been independently tested. All four operate somewhat independently and they compete with each other. And so over the years, and I've been doing this now decades, I know over the years between them, I've met people over the years that have worked with them, and they have rivalry between one another. So they would have different deals for registration, and they certainly have very different prices for hallmarking each piece. And right now, I just checked the current price list here in London. The Goldsmiths Company Assay Office, there's each different assay office has sort of minimum handling charges, minimum charges, postage charges, but the headline rate here in getting pieces hallmarked, if you're registered here in London, and yeah, if I'm registered in London, if I wanted my stuff done in Edinburgh, I'd have to have a separate registration and separate punches for Edinburgh. Again, if I wanted Birmingham, I could register in Birmingham as well, but it'd be a separate registration, new punches, and the punches cost, in this case, a few £100. Registrations, a few £100 for a 10-year registration. So it's not one registration and you can send them wherever you want. You register for each different assay office. If you're registered here in London, currently at the time of me filming this, which is early 2025, it's £1.20 per piece, per hallmark, per item. In Scotland, in Edinburgh, it's 61p. If they add your sponsor's mark as well, if they've got your punches that you haven't taken your punches to do it yourself, I'll come back to why I do it myself in a moment, but yeah, they add 24p. So it's either 61 or worse ways 85p. Now, this is a Lynx of London. This is a vintage or retro Lynx of London charm bracelet. This is whoever owned this was showing off. So the bracelet itself is hallmarked, and then each individual charm was sold separately, and each one, although they're probably all below 7.78 grams, Lynx of London had each one, not all of them, but most of them are hallmarked. So there's 14 charms plus the bracelet. The difference between having that done in Scotland, one bracelet with all those charms, the price difference between having that done in Edinburgh and London is about, it would cost about somewhere between £8 and £9 more, I think, if my maths is correct, having that done here in London. So yeah, you might be thinking, why have you registered in London? Good question. When Lynx of London was founded, it was a different world. So they were a wholesale business initially. They were, a trade supplier to retailers. So where it didn't matter where they were hallmarked. For us, as a digital first, although we are a manufacturer, we're also retailing. We're direct to consumer. So content, it just gives us being registered with the oldest, for one reason is being registered with the oldest assay office, the 700-year history. It gives us content. It's a story, and that's a story we can tell through blog posts and online, and if we have featured hallmarks. I still don't think it will be like they probably saved hundreds of thousands of pounds over their near 30-year production. So I don't know, I can't imagine that it's going to provide us that. I very much doubt we're ever going to sell the kind of volume that they sold anyway. But even if we were, I doubt the story time will add that much value. But also, it can be convenient for us if I'm going to Hatton Garden. they're just a few stops on a train from here. So if I need to, say there's a postal strike and we're desperate for PC, I can drop them off, pick them up. Yeah, I'm trying to sell it to myself. There is, of course, the sustainability aspect to it. They are closer to us, and it just sort of sounds, it makes sense, doesn't it? We're Links London and we're registered with the London Assay Office rather than the Scottish one. But there is a valid reason for registering with the other ones, and that is there's a valid business reason, and that is having anything done here in London costs more money, especially hallmarking. So I registered about a month ago, and I had the punches made. So let's open these up and take a look at them and test them out. Now you can have the punches kept at the assay office, and they can apply your maker's mark. And I don't think that's a terribly bad. It's not a bad idea, because they're really good at it. Like I've always had my sponsors marks, and sometimes occasionally. I think I made a batch of 50 tie clips at the end of last year, and I think I butchered 2 out of the 50. No, it was 100 actually, because I butchered a couple out of them. I think one was savable. Like, although having the assay office, I have had phone calls from the assay office saying, oh, yeah, we've had a slip. But that's rare. They're pretty good. They're really good. They're much better. They're better than me at marking things, as you would imagine. I would imagine their apprentices are better than me. But the reason I have the punches here is it gives us a little bit more control over positioning. Plus, I can use them for other stuff. I'm not sure you're allowed to, technically. But prototyping. Guess that's the invoice. Right, I ordered 4 punches. Now, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to make. So the original Links of London hallmarks were LL in an oval shield. And the way this works is there's 2 different choices of font, because there's going to be, throughout a jeweller's career, the chances are there's going to be more than one LL or whatever your initials are. So there's 2 choices of fonts, which would give, means there could be 2 LLs, but there's also about close to 50 shield. They're called shields, which is the outer shape. I think they're, from memory, there's 47 in total. Seemed like a little bit less than that, but yeah, there's 47. So I think that's right. So what's that? Maths. Close to 100 variations. Now, there was actually only about 10 out of the 47. I think there was. There's only about 10 available currently for LL in one of the. There was about 10 in one font and even less in the other. So there's quite a few LLs registered with the London Assay. I'm not sure whether I'm not sure whether the Maker's Marks is across the whole country or just that one assay office. But luckily there was an oval. There wasn't the small oval that Links of London used, but there was available this sort of elongated oval, almost like a pill shape. They look cool. So yeah, it took them about a month. I think these are handmade in the Goldsmiths Hall Assay Office. Yeah, they look pretty cool. There was 2 choices of font. I think I went for in one of the fonts. I didn't have a choice actually, because in one of the fonts there was nothing even close to an oval, and in this font there was this elongated oval, which is, I'm not sure whether it's a squared off oval or an ovaled off rectangle, but I will stamp these out. And I've got 4 different sizes. I didn't go for a swan neck because I've got swan neck punches for rings, and I very rarely use them, because most of the rings I make, I might have to get one in future, but most of the rings I make are handmade, not cast, so I can stamp them before I form them up. I haven't had I very, very rarely, unless I'm getting castings, need to put my maker's mark in after. I very rarely use the swan neck punch, and it's slightly the face of the punch is slightly rounded off, so I just find the flat ones give a better impression when the ring is flat, than trying to use the swan neck on a flat piece of wire or metal, if that makes sense. Yeah, basically I very rarely stamp formed rings, which is what the swan neck's punch is for. I do stamp a lot of rings, and if you try and use the swan neck prior to forming, because of the curved surface on it, you have to whack it in so deep, it marks the back side of the ring, I find. So I use straight punches on unformed rings. That was a very long explanation for why I didn't get the swan neck. But I also got a really large one, because I haven't really thought through what we're going to make first of all, but I think as Links of London was originally a cufflink brand, and we're very much inspired by their legacy. Some of the first restoration jobs I shared, and actually some of the first restoration jobs I did, was vintage cufflinks from the 1990s, actually, which are available in the Links London store. It'd probably be cool to make some cufflinks, and we could make some with feature hallmarks. I think this year 2025 is letter A, so not only are we we're registering in the start of the alphabet, so I got the big one for feature marks and the little ones for everything else, although maybe I should have got smaller. Well, is that actually charm size? Yeah, right, let's test these out. I've got this sheet of metal here, which I've made a Roxy, which I've engraved for the Roxy pendant we made a few weeks ago. But let's test it out on this scrap piece of metal. I'll bring you a little bit closer. So there are at least 13 different sizes of hallmark and sponsors mark available. However, the punches currently cost £77.50 each plus VAT for the 2 initials. That we have more initials, the higher the cost. So to keep costs down, I've just gone for 4 punches, 4 different sizes of punch. The 4 we're most likely to use in the immediate future. I've got 0.5mm, 0.75mm and 1mm that we'll use on jewellery, and then a 2.5mm, the largest one, for feature hallmarks. Now, I've watched the assay office do hallmarking demonstrations many times, and they quite often use fly presses, so I got a little fly press, and it wasn't doing that good a job, so I got an absolutely massive fly press, and that does a really good job, a little bit too good. I find it quite challenging to line up the pieces on the fly press, and also it's very easy to press a little bit too hard and you go in way too deep and it deforms. The punch goes in and the metal squishes out the sides, so I actually find it easier to line pieces up and mark pieces by hand. However, I've watched the assay offices do demonstrations where they use a hammer, and they'll often do a one and done with a club hammer. Didn't work for me. I tend to almost tap them in like I'm hammering in a nail and rotate the punch a little bit to get it an even impression, and that works for me. Now, these may not come out too well on camera because, like I was saying, the smallest one here is only 0.5mm, so even jewelers will need to use a 10x magnification loupe to read these in real life. But trust me, they've come out really well. The LL is really clear in real life. You'll be able to make out the largest one. However, the smallest ones, you'll need a 10x loupe to read them clearly, but they look as good as the larger one. Okay, I'm really pleased with the way they've come out. Left to my own devices, I would have actually ordered the standard oval shield a la Links of London. I think that's what they were using. Possibly they might have had this one, but yeah, I was aiming to get the oval, but it wasn't available, so I got this. This was the next best thing, but actually it looks better in real life, in real punches stamped into real metal, than it did in the mock-up. In the mock-up, this looked like my second choice, but actually I quite like it now, especially the larger one. The larger one, I think, in this shield looks better than the oval would have. Most of the pieces I'll be using the smallest one. The larger ones will only be used on slightly larger pieces of silverware, and the really large one we've got here will be used for feature hallmarks. Possibly could have struck that a bit harder, but not bad for a first go. I registered online. It was really simple with the Goldsmiths Company at Elvis. The hardest part was paying, because each of these punches, the more punches you go for, and there's more sizes available than that, the more the bill is. So register for hallmarking. The process is, I think the process was a lot harder. I think it's got easier every time I've done it, and I think I think I'm on my third or fourth. I've got personal hallmarks and one for each different brand we have. So yeah, they're fully functional online for registration. That's how I did it. Super simple. Paid the bill. Took about a month for them to make the punches, which they make you aware of at the time. So I'm guessing that busy periods of year. Imagine if you want it done the week before Christmas, you're going to be waiting well into the new year. Now all that's left for me to do, I did create a hallmarking page because they ask us to display these. That one I think is if you've got an actual store, and this one online, but also for customer information. So we've got a hallmarking information page, and I've actually got both there. I need to add some PDF downloads, and there'll be links to the British Hallmarking Council just for customers information. And that's still a work in progress, but that page just goes through our hallmarks. And also I want to, once we get our first hallmarks done, I'll get some images, and I'll update this page with images of our actual hallmarks so customers can identify what our actual hallmarks look like. And I might put some images of the original Links of London ones so that people can, so that customers can identify those on some of our vintage and retro pieces. But yeah, that's it. We're all registered with the Goldsmiths Company assay office, so when we come to manufacturing pieces, we can hallmark them. As I was saying earlier, I took delivery of the punches so that we can position. It just allows us to provide the assay office with a little bit more direction than handwritten notes on bags and hallmarking notes as to the position. But if you were just importing pieces, had no workshop, or you don't fancy doing it yourself, because like I say, you can. It's not as easy as it as you would imagine. See, if you don't fancy doing it yourself, the assay office will store your sponsors marks and apply your sponsors marks as well as their marks, the hallmarks. But yeah, we took delivery of them, so we'll be positioning them. And I also just think it's quite good to participate in the process, as we've got a workshop and we can. But the next video about hallmarking, at some point we're going to make some stuff, and I will then make a video about submitting pieces for hallmarking, because this is just the very first step in the process. That is registering, getting our maker's mark registered, our brand name registered, getting the punches. The next step is actually making something, putting our maker's mark on it, and then submitting the pieces to the assay office. Each piece has to go, they'll test them, add their marks, and then they often need a little bit of TLC when they come back, depending on the positioning. So in future there'll be more videos about hallmarking, because we haven't actually done any yet. Right, I'll see you in the next one. Toodles!